Welcome to Community Conversations. I'm Frederick County Executive Jan Gardner, and I'm very pleased today to have as my guest Judge Edward Dwyer, who has served our community as a judge on the circuit court for 30 years. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm really happy to have you here today. I know you're retiring from the circuit court.
I am.
After 30 years, and in many ways it's hard for me to visualize the circuit court of Frederick County without you there. I think you've provided calm and kind leadership for many years as the administrative judge and really as a judge presiding over the court. So I want to thank you for your service.
Thank you, and you're embarrassing me, but thank you very much.
So how does it feel to be retiring after 30 years?
It's mixed emotions. As you know, I have to retire at age 70. I'll be 70 this month. So I chose to retire at the end of February. I guess the best thing, I have the most confidence, is all my colleagues that I'm leaving behind, with Judge Solt coming in as administrative judge effective today, and Judge Adams, Judge Nicholas, and Judge Raleigh. I just know the court is in good hands. It's going to carry on just the way we've done it. And the administrative personnel that we have there, you know, Barb Domer, I don't know if you know Nancy Bell, who's in charge of our assignment office, but all of those administrators and personnel just make everything flow so well together. So I feel good about that. Peggy says she's ready for me to come home, retire. She retired about a year and a half ago, and we kind of planned it that way, that we'd have a transition, not both retire together. So we're ready to try doing that.
So can you share a little bit about how you started your legal career and maybe a little bit about your experiences on the bench?
All right, well, first I started my legal career in Frederick. First started practicing here in 1972, and that was with Dick Zimmerman and Dave Aldridge. And that firm changed various and sundry ways. I was a litigator. That's what I did. I tried cases. I had general practice of law, but I was a litigator. I did criminal defense. I did family law. I did workman's comp. I did tort, and a little bit of other things of that nature. I still see some of my clients walking down Citizens Way yesterday afternoon at lunchtime. One of my old clients stopped me, and it was just wonderful to see her, and it was a good experience. When I came on the bench, which was in 1985, which will be almost 31 years, not quite, well, it's 30, but not quite 30, almost 31. I was in private practice, and I came to a very small bench. When I say small, we were expanding then. Up until I came on, it was 2 judges at that time.
Wow.
2 circuit, 2 district. It was Judge Wenner and Judge Barrick retired, which opened up 1. And as you know, we're going through trying to get a 6th judge now.
We are.
But they gave us a 3rd judge then. So Claytor Smith, because Judge Barrick was retiring, there were 2 openings. So Claytor Smith and I came on, appointed together by Judge Harry Hughes, and were sworn in within a week of each other. And then Judge Wenner went to the Court of Special Appeals, so we became less than a year, we were the senior judges.
Well, that's an interesting experience.
It is. It was very interesting. Yes, it was extremely interesting. Well, we didn't. Well, you want me to go? I can go into all the changes that have occurred.
Well, I'd like to ask you what you think some of the big changes were that you've observed over the past 30 years.
Well, other than the increase in the size of the court, because, you know, we've gone from 2 judges to 5 judges at the circuit court, 2 judges to 3 judges at the district court. We had no magistrates called masters back then. They came in later on. We now have 2 of those, which help us immensely in our juvenile and family law matters. We had no law clerks.
Wow, so you had nobody really supporting you as a law clerk?
We had no secretaries.
Really? You had no staff at all?
No, I didn't get that far. We had 2 who were court stenographers who kind of doubled by answering the phones and doing typing for us, but we had no administrative staff. We had no law clerks. So this is the change.
Wow.
So first we got our first law clerk. I told you Claytor and I came on 85. The summer of 86, we got our first law clerk, and that was 1 law clerk for 3 judges. And then when Judge Tisdale came, we got 2 law clerks for 4 judges. And these were county employees. And then the state took over, and part of the state was taking over these positions, which I think is appropriate. We then got one law clerk for each of us, and that helped immensely. We each got a secretary. Back in the late 80s, we finally got our own secretary. I didn't have Barb Doomer. I didn't have a court administrator. We didn't have anybody to do all the matters that they have to come before you, with the state, with the administrative office. We didn't have, and she's retiring. We're going to need somebody for her too. And she's the first one that really, we had a couple interim, but Barb's been with us, I don't know, 15 years or whatever it is. It's a long time. We didn't have mediation. Right now we have ADR, an alternative dispute resolution. It is mandatory. We were talking earlier about custody cases. In all custody and visitation cases in which there is no domestic violence, it's mandatory that the parents go through mediation. Let them try and settle it themselves. We use mediation in all our other cases. Now, they can opt out. They can't opt out in those. Right. We didn't have a family services coordinator, which we have now. We have our own court evaluator, which we didn't have then. The services that we have gathered and we now have are tremendous.
So a lot more support staff have come on, but how have you seen cases changed? And what significant cases stand out over the time period?
All right. Well, first, the drug cases have exploded in the criminal area. Okay. And they were always there back there. The heroin epidemic right now throughout both Frederick County and everywhere else is just...
Right. It's a national problem.
It's a national problem, and I don't think we all saw that coming as much as it did. Marijuana was big. LSD was back, PCP. You don't see that very often now. There's always drugs. But even a lot of the more serious crimes, the violent crimes, are driven by drugs or somehow drug-related. How have they changed? We used to do all the cases. With the ADR, because they are mediation,
right.
They're so able to resolve most of the cases. Our efforts now are put into only those cases which cannot or do not resolve, which means they're more complicated, more intense, which is probably better use of the judicial resources. The judges used to do all the juvenile. Now the magistrates do all the juvenile except for very limited matters. TPRs, termination of parental rights, have to be done by a judge. If you disagree with the magistrate's decision, we have called an exceptions hearing to a judge. But that took the juvenile out and when we got our first or our second magistrate, we elected to use it for juvenile, and in effect gave us 3/5 of a judge, because we said juvenile 3 days a week, Tuesday and Thursday for delinquents, Wednesday for SINA, and they take care of all that, which gives us the availability to do it.
So do you think that society has become more litigious over time? I mean, we hear that, but I don't really know if that's the truth.
I think the family law has exploded. And for whatever reason, the family law cases are really there. We do have, I don't know if we want to use the term litigious.
People suing each other,
I know, but not as much for that. But I was going to say, but the case I was about to say, like foreclosures, that's not people being litigious.
That's
but
true.
We have that's a large
circumstance that comes into the courthouse to resolve.
It does. So I mean, a lot of our civil case load, we have those foreclosure cases. Now, even since the beginning, we've had some people who are just plain litigious, and because I think the number of those cases has remained constant, because we've always had a couple people that are just doing that all the time. They're constantly suing. They're bringing cases without merit, and you have to resolve them. It's probably dropped as a percentage of the cases because our caseload has increased, but they take up a lot of time. They take up a lot of resources.
Now, most of the people in the general public and our viewers aren't going to really know, probably don't know, that there's every court in the county, every county in the state has a judge that serves as the administrative judge.
That's right.
To really manage the day-to-day business and the flow of work and all the administrative decisions that might be needed. How long have you served as the administrative judge?
Actually, when I was cleaning out the stuff, I found the order since 1990.
Okay.
Which was what, 20, almost, well, it's actually 26,
25
well, it's
years
actually
now.
26 years because it was February 1990 that
Okay.
I found the order. Claytor was ill, so I was basically acting for a year before that. And so it's been a long time.
So what advice do you give to Judge Julie Solt, who's going to step in that administrative role?
Well, first advice, we have a wonderful bench. Right now she's got, in addition to herself, she's got Judge Adams, Judge Nicholas, and Judge Raleigh. And our bench in Frederick County has been a blessing over my whole 30 years. We know that the benches in other jurisdictions, particularly large ones, can be contentious. We are so collegial, we all work well together. So she's got all the support of those judges. I've already mentioned that we have the support of all our administrative personnel. We have Barb Domer, we have Nancy Bell, we have the assignment office. They'll just give her so much support that she'll do fine. I've seen the candidates to take my place. I don't know which names are going to go to the governor. Those interviews are March 14th for the names to go to the governor. But it's a wonderful list of people who have applied.
Right.
So I know that the governor is going to have a good list to choose from. And we know those people, and we know we can work with them.
So it really comes down to the people.
It
The
does.
people that you
Exactly.
work with have done a great job. They care about the community. They care about each other and work well together. See, I always think that's one of the things, the attributes that makes Frederick County a special place.
It is a special place, and people who, we hear from other judges, and they come in and talk, and she says, Judge Barbera, Chief Judge, she says, I love Frederick County. I don't hear about you. You're not a problem.
Because you figure out your own challenges and get it done.
And we try to do it calmly and not hurt anybody's feelings, and it works well. And it is the people.
So what do you plan to do after retirement?
Well, we have 9 grandchildren, so we're
Well, lucky you to
yeah,
have
okay,
9
thank you.
grandchildren.
And 3 of whom are in Frederick, and actually 8 are in Maryland. So we'll get to see a lot of those. And we have 4 children. We'll see them a little more often than we do.
Well, I think you've had a distinguished career, and I think you have presented that calm demeanor that I think is really important in the judicial role. And I really want to thank you for your service to our community. I think you're going to be greatly missed, and I'll never forget when I would call you at 5 o'clock in the morning to
Right.
tell you about, the snow and whether
Right.
you were going to close the
Okay.
county and
Right.
you needed to close the court.
I remember
And
this.
People are focused on whether school is open or closed, but we were focused on county government and the court
Exactly.
system.
Oh, I remember those
And
phone calls.
you always had a smile in your voice at 5 a.m.
And then I'd call Judge Cheka and wake Judge Cheka up with my smiling voice, or Judge Roberts too, because he was one before Judge Cheka. So, because we made the, after I talked to you, we make the decision as to whether we close the courts. And we followed your lead, because you gave an excellent lead on that.
Well, and I followed the lead of the people out in the roads, but
Well, I said, we knew that you had contact with the people on the roads, which is why we're going to follow your advice. The schools have different criteria.
That's right.
So,
Well, I thank you for your service to the people. I mean, I know you've had a lot of difficult cases over your
Yeah.
career, but at the end of the day, I know that you cared about each of them, knew it was important to the people that were sitting in front of you, and we really want to thank you for making such a big difference to Frederick County.
thank you. And I also want to thank, before the county commissioners, now you and the county council, for all your support, because you've been very supportive of the courts, the whole county government, and thank you very much for that.
All right. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Community Conversations. And if you see Judge Dwyer, thank him for his many years of service to our community. He's been a fine judge and a wonderful person, and we will miss him on the bench in Frederick County. Thank you for joining us.